Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am once again building a shield. You've seen me build quite a few of them over the past couple of years. I've built from franchises like Lord of the Rings and a number of others, Legend of Zelda, and I've also designed a few of my own. It's one of my favorite things to build. I don't know what it is about the item, but this week I wanted to build one to commemorate the loss of my grandfather. You heard me talk last week about having mental block, and this is definitely part of the reason that I've been suffering from it. I've been working on this build for about 3 weeks now, and every time I try to approach it, it gets very emotional, and it's been difficult. So, being a creative person, the best way I know how to express myself and how to work through emotions is to be creative. So hopefully this video helps you. I know it's going to help me. So without further ado, today we are building a shield to commemorate my pappy. Let's get to building. So before this build actually started, I had lengthy conversations with my mother about the life of my grandfather. We talked about his service in the military, his years of work as a police officer for the city of Dallas, and his retired life in the country. I looked at old photos, read old posts on Facebook, watched some videos my mom had shared, and really dove into trying to find a direction for this build. One of my favorite things to build is shields, and my grandfather wore one on his chest for 30 years as a police officer. So the idea seemed pretty greatly matched. I drew probably 2 or 3 dozen different iterations, trying to combine a number of elements into his shield that at a surface glance may just look like a cool design, but I will know, as well as whoever watches this video, that it symbolized a small portion of the awesome man that I lovingly refer to as my pappy. After coming up with a lot of ideas, I combine elements into one master design that will act as my reference image. So the base layer of the shield will be made out of 2 layers of 10mm foam with additional layers stacked on top of it to add details. I'll do my best to break down the design as we go through the video to explain my choices and give you a little insight into my grandfather. The shape of the shield is based on the shape of the badge that my grandfather wore as a cop from 1962 to 1992. I enlarged my rough draft to the size I wanted it to be and used it as the template for my build. Fully built, the shield is about 28 inches tall and 20 inches wide. I trace the shape onto the foam, flip over the pattern, and copy the reverse. My hand-drawn concept art is not symmetrical, so doing the pattern in only a half will get it closer to being even. There are a lot of different ways you could attack cutting out those ridges on the top and bottom of my design. Not really something that I had planned out when I was designing it. That's a lot of intricate little step downs. My game plan is to just cut out the silhouette, and I can carve the ridges in with a rotary tool later, keeping it all one piece. Do your best to keep the hobby knife straight up and down as you plunge into the corners so that you don't accidentally gouge out little pieces or cut slits that shouldn't be there. You may be wondering why either is a hole in the middle of a shield and there's these rail-looking things on the side. My grandfather loved to play music. He was in a band in the military service, and he could play both the harmonica and the guitar at the same time. He actually learned how to play music by ear and never learned how to read music sheets. So the hole is the guitar and the rails are a simplified version of what a harmonica looks like. I want this shield to have a curve in it, so hence the PVC pipe I'm using to elevate the middle here in this clip. Another thing that you may notice is that I pre-cut the top layer but didn't cut the second layer. Because it is going to be a curved shield, the bottom layer will be slightly bigger than the top. Instead of trying to make my brain figure out the stretch of that pattern, gluing it down and cutting it out after just seemed easier. Spray the contact cement on both sides, let it set up for a few minutes, and then tack it together. The eagle with the star on its chest is representing his years in the Navy. He served just before the Vietnam War as a radio technician stationed in Guam. I always loved seeing pictures of him in the service. To see my grandfather as a young man in his uniform always left me wondering what he was like before he became a pappy. He loved telling us stories of his glory days as a young buck. The badge I am using for the shape reference has those top and bottom ridges, so I added another layer of foam, this time only 6mm with those parts cut off. That's pretty much how the rest of the overlays went, cutting off pieces of my template and then cutting that into various thicknesses of foam to add dimension to the build. Then before gluing on the new layer, I sanded back the ridges with my rotary tool, and of course the ridges have symbolism also. My pappy had 4 children, all girls. His daughters have a total of 9 children, so the top count is 13 ridges representing his kids and grandkids. The bottom set of ridges represent all his great-grandkids, which is a total of 16. If you can't tell by those numbers, I have a very large family. My grandmother and grandfather both came from families of 7 children. Now, on the center of the feather on my eagle, I wanted to incorporate my grandfather's birth year, and instead of just writing it out and getting it confused with like a badge number or something, I decided to put it in Roman numerals instead. It would take up more space and be a little more stylized. The Roman numerals for 1939 would be MCM XXXIX. So I roughly mapped out even sections, write the letters, and then burn them in with a wood burner to engrave the foam. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while burning or sanding EVA. You don't want to breathe in the fumes or the particles. I also went ahead and burned in the Latin words that roughly translate to "gone but not forgotten" on the banner at the top of the shield. My grandfather was born May 13th and died just a few weeks shy of his 85th birthday, which would have been Monday of the week I'm releasing this video. The rivets have no intended symbolism behind them. I just wanted to add a little more detail to the flat areas to give it interest. For the size rivet I wanted, I decided to remove the casing on my rotary tool and use the little circle that the chuck goes into. It's that perfect size between all the bits that I have, and that's what I went with. You just plunge the metal bit into the foam and pull back, then you have a nice recessed rivet detail. Two coats of Plasti-Dip. Then a nice coat of silver hammered spray paint for a little bit of texture. The Dallas police badges from the 1960s were pretty simplistic in their color scheme. Everything was silver with a shiny blue background, so that's pretty much what I stayed with. I did add a little bit of gold on a few pieces just to give a little bit of contrast. Typically after this step I would weather the paint job with more watered down acrylics, but I stopped myself. I can remember as a young kid seeing my grandfather's badge. Even after 30 years of service, it was still shiny as the day he got it, untarnished and well maintained. His years in the military and police force had left him with a detail polishing edge. He was always well groomed, had a distinct aftershave or cologne that I can still remember the smell of today, and always well dressed. So this shield will remain polished like he was, shining on a wall as a reminder of what a great man and light he was to our family. Thanks, Pappy, for all the guidance, love, and life lessons. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I really like the way this thing turned out. It is very much like a badge, similar to what my grandfather used to carry when he was on duty. It is a lot of symbolism in there that at first glance you may not even really notice it, or if you hadn't watched this video, you may just think it's a big police badge or maybe a shield, which is the intention. And it was nice piecing together parts of his life to then put it in something that I could hang on a wall and look at every day and be reminded. So maybe you will try and make something like this yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to work through some stuff and hopefully grieve in your own way and maybe help somebody out in the process. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some... Yay! And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? Give them one of these, tell them, much props. Now I just got to find a spot on my wall in my man cave. Love you, Pappy. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds like this, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.